Blake, good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining me on the Q.A.C. team podcast this afternoon. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing excellent, excellent. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I'm honored to interview you. I appreciate it. And let's go ahead and get this interview started and tell our audience more about who you are and what you do.
Awesome. So I'm Blake and I own a online fabric business called Snip. And I started out about a little over 2 years ago, and my business has evolved probably 5 times since I started, and we'll get into that a little bit more. But long story short, I sell fabric.
Don't steal my thunder, man, because I got the questions now, you know.
Got it.
So tell us a little bit about why you decided to be a business owner. What sparked this?
Yeah, so this sparked off in the pandemic during lockdown, which I think a lot of people have a similar story.
Yeah.
I spent over a decade as a corporate tech consultant, and I climbed that corporate ladder, and I loved being a consultant, and I've been in tech my whole life. But, being stuck at home like a lot of people, I had my first child during that time, and I really just started to reflect on everything. And I started following people on social media who started convincing me I could do my own thing. Uh, I never was a good employee, to be completely honest. And that's why I loved consulting because it gave me that ability to move around and not really have to stick to the rules. That was kind of my niche. And so, yeah, I just decided one day that I was going to, attempt my own thing and see where it could take me. And my first couple of businesses failed, but eventually I figured it out.
That's what a lot of us, right? Entrepreneurship's not easy. And, that's one of the things that, my Friday at Four podcast, my co-host Steve Kent and I, we talk a lot about that. That question comes up a lot about what we do is not easy. And as long as we keep going, get steady forward, man, we got this.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
started reading a lot during lockdown and like Think and Grow Rich, like some of these older books. And
yeah,
those really motivated me a lot.
yes, they do. Yes, they do. My next podcast coming up, I'm going to be interviewing somebody that's big into the law of attraction, just like I am. So I'm kind of excited about that. And that's one thing I want to mention since you mentioned, Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill, man. It's mastermind groups. That's huge. Bounce
Yeah.
ideas off each other.
Yep.
It
Yeah, that was
helps.
one of the things I did early on when I started is I joined a group. There was like 20 of us. A couple of guys put it on and we met 2 times a week and it was people like myself and we just bounced around ideas and that helped
Yeah.
me out tremendously.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. So let's dive into this a little bit. So why did you choose your industry? Let's talk a little bit about that. You got the
Yes.
pandemic, you had a kid, you failed a couple of businesses. Now you're
Yes.
doing fabric. Let's talk about that. Why'd you choose this?
Yeah, this is fun. So I did some consulting work for Berkshire Hathaway. And
Nice.
yeah, so they bought a company called Clayton Homes, which makes mobile homes. And what I learned from them over the year of working with them is Berkshire Hathaway doesn't buy businesses because they care about the business. They buy the business to monopolize that entire industry. And that kind of sounds dirty, but after spending time with them, it can be very beneficial to the industry and to the consumer. So once Berkshire Hathaway bought Clayton Homes, which if you're not familiar, they're the biggest mobile home manufacturer in the world. So Berkshire Hathaway purchased them. Once they purchased them, they then owned the entire mobile home industry, meaning they own the land that the house was on, they financed the house, they insured the house, they made the house, they sold the house, they literally owned the whole entire pie. And so I kept that in the back of my mind of like, this is how you do it. This is like the go big. So I started basically making this list of like, how can I monopolize an entire industry?
Yeah.
And around that time, I started listening to people who talked about how the older generation was big into owning businesses and they're retiring, and the younger generation doesn't want to take it over. And so now there's literally thousands of businesses around the world who are going to close with no one to take them over. So I set out locally to find businesses that I could take over, basically. And with that in mind, I kept my checklist in the back of my head. Okay, here's the things that I'm looking for in a business because I don't want to just take over the business. I want to potentially take over that whole industry at some point. And so I met with people. This took about a year and a half of meeting with people, business owners, friends, family, all over the place. And oddly enough, I have family members in the fabric industry, and we had lunch one day, and they were like, everything you're saying applies perfectly to the fabric industry. And so they were like, I'll introduce you to some people and see what, you know, what works, what doesn't work. And so I met a lady, 83 years old, Pat. Big shout out to Pat. Love you, Pat. And she was trying to close her fabric shop and she had all this fabric and she didn't know what to do with it. So I literally took 50 of her fabrics home, created a website overnight. I created a website, created a Facebook, created Instagram, started running ads, and within about 6 hours, I got my first sale.
Wow,
Yep. And
that's impressive.
so it was awesome. So I quickly realized, okay, the internet part of this, yes, wide open. Nobody's doing what I want to do. Then I then convinced Pat to give me about $150,000 worth of inventory with no money down.
Keyword, no money down.
Yes. So, yep. I mean, we signed a contract on on a napkin, basically. And it was, pay her as I go. So in the beginning, I was like paying her weekly, like, hey, this is how much I made. Here's your cut. And then eventually it became monthly. Then it became quarterly. Now it's annually I pay her. And I'm still
That's,
working through her fabric. But
that's
yes.
amazing. Yeah.
Um, yeah, so it worked. Like I now I've now bought out five different shops, three of which were on different seller financing deals, and then the other two I bought out outright with the money.
Yeah.
And now I'm in the process, and this has kind of become my thing. Now I've gotten so big on social media that they reach out to me, and I kind of just have the process down.
That's great. I mean, what a story, right? Because here you are, you had no idea what you were doing. You heard about fabric, you dove into it. You did this with no money, and you convinced someone to say, "Let's do this." And she said, "Yes." And here you are, you're paying off this. That's true entrepreneurship right there. I love it. I mean, kudos to you, man. I tell you, that's why I do what I do with this podcast, to hear these stories. Good stuff.
Thank you. Yeah. And,
Yeah.
that's a summary and that sounds good because you've got where I'm at now, but most of it was nightmare fuel, man. Like
But you gotta hold that, right? Because my next question is, right, what are some of the challenges that you face? Because as entrepreneurs, we have tons of challenges, man. And I'm going through them every day. I could probably say I'm going through them about an hour now. So let's hear some of yours.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. So the first challenge I faced, fabric is a difficult business, and you don't know it really till you're in it. But the first challenge I faced, I had to move the fabric. The building it was at, the lease was about to expire, so I had to move it. So that was step one. I had nowhere to put it. I had very little money at the time, so I put it in a storage unit and would literally take fabric to my house. The next thing was it wasn't inventoried into any system. So I had to inventory it myself, which is incredibly difficult. You have to take the picture, write the description, figure out how much length is on each bolt.
Yeah.
Very complicated. So I started working through all that, started slowly figuring my way through that. Then then the next challenge really became how do I make money off of this? Because in hindsight, I overpaid for the fabric I got. And a lot of that was I didn't know what I was doing and I got it on seller finance. So the first 2 years, money was an incredible struggle. I was constantly just trying to pay the bills. I couldn't afford to help from anybody. I was constantly having to move the fabric. I rented a little area in a warehouse for a little while, which was an hour and a half from my house. So
Wow.
for about 6 months, Yes, three
You're
times a
going
week. I
back
was
and
waking up at
forth.
6 a.m. and going back and forth. And it was a nightmare, man. On top of
Yeah.
all that, I wasn't making money. So, um, yeah, that those were the early on challenges. Then I met another lady who wanted to give me her fabric. And so for those that don't know, fabric comes on like a cardboard, it's rolled around cardboard and that's called a bolt. So from the first lady, I got about 3,000 bolts.
Phew.
And yeah, I then met a lady in New York who had 3,500 bolts. So with that being said, another lesson I learned is don't start with 3,000 bolts. And then don't buy 3,500
Don't,
more.
don't buy all of these bolts because that's just too
Yeah.
many bolts.
Way too much. So I worked this out with the lady in New York, and in my mind, it was like, okay, well, now that I have more fabric, now I can justify getting my own warehouse. So
Yeah.
I'm talking to the lady in New York. I'm looking for a warehouse, and I want to let everybody know finding space is hard. Um, like whether it be retail, office, warehouse, it's not easy. I really underestimated how difficult it was to find the right space.
The
Um,
right space, right? Anybody can find a space, but the right one is key, right? Because it's got to be the right location for you, the price. It's so much that goes into that, right? Yeah.
Yeah, a huge thing. And I learned that a lot of these places are owned by corporations, or bigger
Uh-huh.
businesses, and they want 3-year leases. They want 3 months down since I was nobody. And I literally, a lot of this information wasn't on the internet. So I would spend days just driving around town, looking at signs and calling people. Um, Eventually, I found a lady who owns a bunch of restaurants locally, and she owned a warehouse that she was looking to lease. So she gave me a 1-year lease to start with, and she was very helpful with working with me. Um,
Nice.
and yeah, we had lunch together. She's awesome. And
That's
so
awesome.
I then got that fabric from New York. So lesson I learned, it cost me about $6,000 to move the fabric. So
Whew.
I I literally had 10 grand in my bank, which was my survival money. I had quit my job at this point and I was only doing fabric and I was down to my last 10 grand and that was to pay my bills and I literally paid my house rent money on moving the fabric and getting this new warehouse. And I literally went all in and there was a month I didn't have the money to pay my rent and I got the warehouse, I got the fabric from New York, and that sort of started my new like chapter, my new thought of, okay, I'm going to open to the public. I'm going to have more fabric. I'm going to not have to drive every day, list it myself. So I worked through that for about 3 or 4 months, and I once again found myself bankrupt. Once again, my overhead was so much higher. I hired a couple of part-timers, and I figured out that when you buy fabric for $5 and sell it for $8 and you're selling 6 yards at a time, you're not going to make money. Um, so
At least you figured it out though, I mean, that's the key part. We have to start somewhere.
yeah,
Yeah.
yes. And so that I once again, and this is a great lesson. I think you probably hear this lesson nonstop is it really wasn't until my back was completely against the wall. It was December of 2024 and I was trying to get a job because I couldn't pay my bills anymore. I was looking at filing for bankruptcy. I was talking to my landlord about how I didn't have rent money for January, and I was at literally one of the lowest points of my life. I had completely admitted I failed. I completely admitted that I broke everything and nothing worked and I did everything wrong, and I was in a pretty rough place. And one of my friends suggested doing like a big weekend event. Like, hey, do your social media thing and make it a big deal. Make a big deal out of this thing that you're opening to the public and you're liquidating, everything must go, go, go. And I did that. And I made all of my bill money in one day.
One
Um,
day.
one
Amazing.
day. Yeah, it was
Amazing.
I did like
Yeah.
$6,000 revenue in one day. Um,
Wow.
And yeah, so I paid all my bills that day. And another thing that happened was I met some ladies who they sell sewing machines and they were looking for space. And they were going through what I went through. And
Yeah.
so literally 2 days after meeting them, they rented out half of my warehouse and moved in and split the bills with me.
What a
Um,
lifesaver. That's awesome.
yeah. So
Yeah.
literally in 2 weeks, I went from pretty much the worst case scenario to back on my feet. Not just back on my feet, but now a little wiggle room, you know?
That's
Um,
awesome, man. Congratulations. You made it, you know?
I did. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
You know,
like
it's because
one of the
you didn't give up. You know, you kept
yeah,
going. You knew you had a great business model. You knew you had something. Just keep it going, right?
yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's, like one of the things I learned early on, my first two businesses failed. And my first two businesses, I had a good amount of capital. My first business, I blew through about $40,000 and lost all of it and never made a dime. And then my second business, I started with about $10,000. I made that $10,000 back, and so I kind of broke even. And so, kind of on my list of things was, okay, this third business, I need to be able to get sales with spending no money.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like get
Yeah.
a customer first, get a sale first, and then figure out the rest.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's good. So, we come a long way here. You talked about, why you got started, how things worked out, why you chose the industry, the challenges that you face. So let's talk about where you're headed, the expectations for your business the next year or two. What are you looking to do?
Yes. So, as you stated earlier, there's always challenges. You're always on the edge.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the last few months, my business has taken off. Um, if you don't know, Joann Fabric, they had 850 stores. They were the big player, $3 billion
Sure.
a year in revenue, and they shut down
Yeah.
back in April of this year. And that, as you can imagine, absolutely changed my life. Like that
Yeah.
I mean, my business overnight just took off. So I have been absolutely crushing it the last 3 months. Life is good. I'm actually paying myself a salary. I bought a car. My car was
Yeah,
broke down. Like,
man.
yeah, I'm moving now. I have a house. Yeah, it's going
Yeah.
well. And so, yeah, the beginning of this month, I came to a crossroad where it was, okay, I can now just coast and live comfortably, or I can just once again put it all on the line and scale this bad boy and
Scale
scale it.
it.
So that's what I've done. So literally this month, I've hired 3 new employees. I've bought more fabric in the last 2 weeks than the whole 2 years combined. The ladies that moved into my warehouse, we worked out a deal. They found a new place now, and they're going out on their own, and I'm taking my whole warehouse back. And
Nice.
I'm literally, yeah. So all the money I'm making, I'm putting it right back into the company now,
Yeah.
and growing, 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 growing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Really good. And that was going to be one of my questions that an extra question I was going to ask you once we started getting finished here, because we're almost done. And one of the questions I was going to ask you, was about Joann Fabrics, because I know they went out, like, were they competition? How are you working that? So you completely answered that question perfectly. So that's great.
Yeah, like there's and you know this. One big thing about jumping into business is there's a lot of unforeseen things that will happen. And the normal person will think of all the bad unforeseen things that happen. But once you get in it, you realize that there's more good unforeseen things that can happen than bad.
Yeah.
Sure, bad's going to happen, but you
Yeah.
kind of already think through those. So one of the good things that happened that I didn't even think of was when Joann closed, sure, I got customers, but the suppliers that were supplying Joann are kind of getting desperate. And they're sitting on a ton of fabric that Joann was buying, and they've been looking for new people to buy it. So I've lucked out in that I'm now just able to buy all this fabric in bulk for cheap because Joann's not buying it anymore.
Love it. Love it. So let's talk a little bit about how we find you, how we contact you. If people are listening to the podcast, they reach out to you, they want to buy some fabric. Because I know I sent your website to my cousin who does quilting, and she's already looked at your website. And she's like, what a great site. I'll be there. So
Nice. I
you already
love
got
it.
one customer from me.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're called SewSnip, SEWSNIP.com. Originally the name was Creative Closeouts Fabric.
Yeah.
And that's the longest name on earth, so that didn't work. So I rebranded to SewSnip, and one of my friends said if it doesn't work out in fabric, I could become a spade and neutering business. So that's how you could help you remember. But yeah, I'm on Instagram every day. I'm on Facebook every day. I mean, I can't preach enough about how good social media is for growing a business. I mean,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. So true. So true. And I struggle with it because, my content's not perfect. So I'm still figuring that out. And I get it. It's if you're not online, man, it's a challenge, especially
Yeah.
for small businesses.
Yeah, and that was one of the biggest things that helped me be successful is my first viral video got over 1 million views, and it was me talking trash about Joanne a year before they filed for bankruptcy. And it was basically
Wow.
me saying Joanne's going to file for bankruptcy in a year. The writing's on the wall, and a million
Did it.
comments of no, it's not. They're doing great. They'll never close.
Yeah. Wow. Look at that. Impressive.
Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah. And final question. Do you have like an offer discount to our listeners?
I currently don't, but
Okay.
if you go on the website sewsnip.com, there's a little chat box in the corner, and that goes directly to my phone. So it's me you're chatting
Nice.
with. And if
Love
you're
it.
watching this podcast, hit me up on there, say, "Hey, I saw you on the podcast," and I'll shoot you a discount for sure.
How about that? Yeah, I do the same thing. I got a chat bot on mine too. It goes right to my phone, man. I think that's one of the coolest things ever. Anybody that's reaching out to you, you get them live, you get them real time.
Yep, it's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Hey, one last final thought for us before we close out here.
Yeah, I highly, highly recommend if you're thinking about getting into business, look at buying a business that's already in business and wanting to close. People don't think this is real, and I didn't even think it was real. But once you get out there and you start talking to people, there are, I would say, an endless amount of people in every industry who are looking to retire.
Yeah. Absolutely. I love it. Um, again, I commend you for sticking to it, doing what you did. You kept going, you made it, you persevered. I'm looking to do the same thing. Perseverance is just something that we want to do and keep going. We have ideas. We love what we do. We want to keep it going. So congrats to you. And again, I want to thank you for coming on the podcast. I know you'd mentioned before we did this that this is your first ever interview, your first ever
Yes,
podcast.
yes, yes, yes. Thank
I
you.
am, yes, I am honored and grateful to be the first one. That way, anybody else you interview after, you can say, I was on Chuck's. I was on that podcast first.
Yes, no joke. Like, I am
Thank
so
you.
thankful for this. Yes, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
This has been awesome.
Yeah. Blake, again, thanks for coming on the podcast. I appreciate
Yes,
it. Let's keep in touch and
yes.
I will chat with you soon. Okay.
Awesome. Thanks so much,
Hey,
Charles.
have a great rest of your day, man.
Bye.
Thanks for sharing your story. Okay.
Thanks.
Take care.
You've been listening to the QAC Team podcast with your host, Charles Luttrell. Connect with us on the web at QACteam.com, TikTok at QAC Team, Facebook and Instagram at QAC.team. Thanks for your support.